I'm Chisgule Gaming, and in today's video, we're going to give you everything you need to know to slay your enemies in Light and Darkness Kingdom versus Kingdom. Hello my friends and welcome back. Today we're doing an extremely detailed guide for Light and Darkness KvK, which is different than Season 1 and Season 2 of Kingdom vs. Kingdom. If you like Rise of Kingdoms guides that help you get value and smash your enemies, consider smashing that subscribe button for daily Rise of Kingdoms videos. We're a sponsored content creator, and Light and Darkness KvK is very different than the KvKs of past. So what we're going to do in this video is give you a very detailed guide from the very first things that happen, which is the eve of the Crusade, leading all the way in to how people win and lose Light and Darkness. Now, of course, as is the case in all my long-form videos, the links are in the description, so you can jump to whatever portion of the video. Now, as we make this video, we're actually going to cruise our way through a very detailed guide that someone else had created that has a bunch of screenshots and laid out a bunch of other information already. I don't know who created this guide. Someone put a bunch of information together, and we're going to use it as the framework for providing our own evaluation and reference the screenshots and information that they have here. So to whoever created this Rise of Kingdoms Light and Darkness KvK guide, salute to you. It looks like they did this in March of 2020, and you should totally put your name on this darn thing. And I should say I'm happy to update the description with the author's name if they do want to provide that information and can prove they are, in fact, the author. The first thing we should talk about for Light and Darkness Kingdom vs. Kingdom is how you're matched up with an opponent. This is very different than how matchmaking has worked in the past. In Season 1 of KvK, you're just grouped up with your continent. In Season 2 of KvK, you're grouped up with a bunch of kingdoms based on power. And in Season 3 and beyond, there is this Light and Darkness function where you form a team before matchmaking happens. So there's going to be a bunch of kingdoms that are classified as different tiers of strength, A, B, C, or D. And then you form a team with a combination of kingdoms with classifications specified for the game. So for me, for example, our Season 3 of KvK was A, B, 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 C, D, D, D. That means 1A kingdom paired with 3B kingdoms, 1C kingdom paired with 3D kingdoms. And if you were matched against somebody, it would be 1A and 3Bs versus 1A and 3Bs. So that it's an even-ish matchup. Kingdoms of the same grouping of classifications are fighting against each other. And that, I think, is a good thing, by the way. I think this is a very good design. I like that you pick the allies, and that's really on you. And there's a formal system for getting those allies in place, which I think is really great. This, by the way, is the only clue I have as to who maybe made this document, is that maybe it was 1198, but they could have taken this screenshot from somewhere themselves. Now we're headed into Season 5 of KvK, and for us, it's AA, B, B, and then CC, D, D. I like that format a lot because the distinction between an A and a B or a C and a D was maybe broader than they were giving sort of credit here. So there were a lot of B kingdoms that were really punching at A strength, and so by doubling the number of A kingdoms, I think matchmaking has been made much, much better, and we'll see how that ultimately plays out for us this KvK. For this matchmaking phase, there'll be a timer before matchmaking phase happens. There'll be a timer for you to actually formalize who your matches are, and the king of the kingdom has to actually apply to your own kingdom to get in, and you put a description for what you want to say about your kingdom, and you can post your team is looking. And then there's a matchmaking period where Lilith or the developers are trying to figure out which of these groupings are going to be battling against each other. Now, once your matchmaking has happened, you enter into the pre-KvK stages, also known as Eve of the Crusade. That will happen in several phases. First is battling against Marauders. You battle Marauders to get satchels. You open up the satchels. They have scraps of parchment. You combine the different groupings of parchment in order to get a chest. When you exchange for a chest, you are getting points onto the board. So this is something that is highly rewarding in KvK, that you can get a ton of speed ups and other goodies if you are a free-to-play player and you're not going to be pushing honor in KvK itself, or you're trying to really push your rank in Eve of the Crusade. This is a great event to go in on because it's very rewarding, especially since they have added into the game a way to trade parchment with another player. This is very important because frequently you'll end up with a lot of one parchment and none of another. Well, now there's a system where you can indicate that you are trying to request one and are looking for another. And by the way, looks like that's a Legend Ronnie logo at the bottom corner of the screenshot. Whoever took this cut out the Legend Ronnie logo, but thanks Ronnie for the screenshot in here. This is important that you start trading your pages early and open your satchels early because it does take time to trade pages with your alliance members. There's no in-game constraint. It just takes time for people to look and need what you're asking for. And that's a very intuitive system once you start using it. The next stage is really going to decide who wins or loses the Eve of the Crusade. It is trading. This will massively sway the balance of which kingdom is winning the Eve of the Crusade. Here are the points that you get listed for trading troops. The higher the tier, the more points you get. This is a great event where if you're low on speed ups, upgrading your troops from one lower tier to a higher tier will get you an astonishing amount of points per speed up spent. This, of course, is true of Mightiest Governor as well. The third phase is going to be a fort destroying phase. There will be marauder forts that spawn into your home kingdom. You rally them down, you get points. The biggest constraint for this phase is actually going to be the number of marauder forts that are available. You want to rally with a small number of troops and get lots of people into each rally. For that reason, you typically send multiple groupings of players to disparate parts of the map in order to rally down without having super long walk times. And frequently, you do have groups go into Zone 1 and Zone 2 of your home kingdom for this activity. I would make the argument that this portion of the event is not particularly rewarding. However, it's a really great idea to at least be burning tons of action points on your farm in a main alliance, sending troops to rallies just to score lots of points and get you lots of resource packs that ultimately you can hand off resources to your main. The rewards for pre-KvK for the top kingdoms are as follows. 3% damage for rank 1, 2% damage for rank 2, 1% damage for rank 3, 5% gathering speed at rank 4, 3% training speed at rank 5, which is a really good buff, 5% AP recovery at rank 6, 2% research speed at 7, and 2% building speed at rank 8. The combat-oriented ones are the most coveted, with the exception of training speed, which is really quite exceptional. However, I'm going to make the argument that really the combat-oriented ones are the very best. You really would like your kingdom to get the 3% damage, and these buffs stay with everyone in your kingdom for the entirety of your KvK. Now, the Light and Darkness KvK map is definitely different than what we have seen before. You'll see that 2 light allies are on the top and the bottom, 2 dark allies are on the left and right. The altars are in orange. The Altar of Darkness and the Ancient Ruins are in orange over here, which means you are going to go typically one kingdom versus one kingdom, although technically you have a shared zone wherein you could place forts from multiple kingdoms by one of these passes, so that you could get multiple kingdoms into the Altar of Darkness or Ancient Ruins area. These are structures that you fight over for honor points. Weirdly enough, the amount of honor that you get from this is so small compared to the amount of honor that you'll get battling barbarians. At an individual level, it's not going to matter for your own honor, but for a kingdom and alliance level, battling for the structures in orange are really quite significant. And the checkered area in the middle is where Kingsland opens up and is the very first place where people will actually be fighting each other head to head for territory. Kingdoms will work their way toward the center, where first Pass 4 will open, you move into the next area. Pass 5 opens, you start battling for altars. Pass 6 opens, and you make your way into the next zone. Then Pass 7 opens, and you're fighting for the Altars of Darkness. And then Pass 8 opens, and that's when you're battling for Kingsland. That's when things get really, really crazy. After that, things will start to be unsealed, and that will be the only time in which your zones can be invaded by the enemy. There even is, by the way, a backdoor pass, which I find very fascinating, from the neighboring camps from Light and Darkness in each of the corners of the map. So theoretically, you could create a situation where you go one-on-one against some of these kingdoms in the very end to try to take out their Crusader fort, and we'll talk about why you would want to do that when we get to the rewards. First, however, we do need to talk about rebuilding your Crusader fort. This is basically identical to how it worked in Season 1 and 2 of KvK. In phase 1 of rebuilding your Crusader fort, you donate resources or gems in order to rebuild the Crusader fort. Depending on what you donate, you will get a different amount of contribution, and you get a different amount of Crusader supply chests, which are a pretty sick way to convert gems into action points. I will make the argument that only very high spenders would consider doing that if you needed to convert a huge amount of gems. In phase 2, you're going to be battling barbarians and barbarian forts. That is going to generate credit toward a chest that you unlock, and also will give you some small amount of credit towards phase 2 of the Crusader fort being rebuilt. In phase 3 of Past Glory, you are turning in sculptures of commanders that you really don't need anymore for a currency that you can use to even get legendary commander sculptures. Honestly, it is quite exceptional. This is the phase that you used to actually be able to miss, and it would end so fast that you didn't get to participate. Now this will run until I think the Crusader forts are required to all be built, which is like 9 days is the total amount of time. And so everyone will have a chance to participate in this phase of the event, which is extremely high value, and you get a ton of free rewards. Now, the Light versus Darkness format really features one major difference besides the critical changes to the map, which is a stage-oriented system rewarding kingdoms for mostly PvE-related stuff. The first thing is resource gathering. The next stage will be using speed-ups. The next stage will be destroying barbarian forts, then training troops, and lastly, wounding or killing enemies. Let's get a look at each of these stages. In stage 1, you are gathering resources, and you get an amount of points based on the type of resource that you have gathered. The real hack for this stage is to gather ridiculous amounts of resources before this stage begins, and then turn in those resources when this stage starts. That'll give you a massive jumpstart, and you can see here that the entire camp is battling. You will get rewards for this event based on your own individual contribution, and also for a ranked contribution against literally everyone in the entire kingdom versus kingdom. And those rewards are actually pretty lucrative in terms of massive amounts of honor tokens that you'll get, and also a few material choice chests, which is a pretty nice pickup. Stage 2 is related to using speed ups. You get 1 point per speed up used. I'm going to argue that you should use your troop training speed ups during the troop training portion instead of here. However, this is one more phase where having lots of people in your kingdom really does go a very long way. Stage 3 is for battling barbarian forts. Use the same guidance that we shared earlier, where you want to get lots of people into lots of fort rallies using small amounts of troops. The constraint really is the number of barbarian forts that are rallyable at all, and you want to get as many farms into those rallies as you possibly can. Stage 4 follows the Mightiest Governor training point breakdown in a very similar sort of a fashion. 5 points for T1, 10 points for T2, 20 points for T3, 40 points for T4, and 100 points for T5, and you get the difference in points between one unit or another if you're upgrading from one to another. So if you're upgrading from a T4 to a T5 unit, you would get 60 points for that upgrade. The final stage is kind of like Mightiest Governor, where you're getting points for severely wounding or killing troops. A lot of incentive here to be fighting during this stage of the event. Now, just like was the case in Season 1 and 2 of KvK, in the LvD KvK, you are going to get honor points and Soluna coins for battling barbarians and destroying barbarian forts. It's really the Soluna coins that are a new idea. You consume your Soluna coins to get technology points that you can apply towards technology that advances your entire war camp. The war camp is the entire light side, all of those kingdoms, or the entire dark side, all of those kingdoms. The technology boosts are really meaningful and extremely difficult to max out all of these. So as a war camp, you are going to have to decide which one of these you'll want to invest in. The technology choices here are really quite remarkable. They range from giving you march speed to increasing your combat effectiveness by giving you stats. I will point out that this is a part of the reason why health is one of the most efficient stats in Rise of Kingdoms, because typically when a stat is the lowest, you get the most benefit by getting more points of it. And things like this and your alliance technology give you attack, they give you defense, they don't give you health. Regardless, there's a lot of buffs to be had here, and as an entire war camp, you should align on what buffs you're hunting for. I'll take a moment to show each of the stages of Twilight up on the screen. I'm not going to walk through each of these because it would take a very long time, but know that they are on the screen here. You can see the order of these, and it is worth mentioning that this theoretically could change between now and the time that you go into a Light and Darkness KvK. In terms of honor competition, just like in Season 1 of KvK, you are competing at an individual, alliance level, and kingdom level for honor gain. There is no war camp level honor gain, however, that's really more the Light versus Darkness 5-stage event that we were talking about earlier. There are also Crusader achievements, similar to how you've seen them in the past. They are adjusted slightly because the duration of Light and Darkness KvK is actually shorter. Here are some of those achievements. We'll try to make our way through these, and you can, of course, pause the video if you want and get a closer look at these. I suspect, by the way, that these will change by the time that you actually go in and get a look, or you get into your own Light and Darkness KvK. I have a suspicion that these will have changed by that moment in time, but they're always making adjustments. That makes sense. Here's what they are at the time that this was documented, which was March of 2020. Now, as you battle in this form of KvK, at least at the time of this recording, there was a light phase and a darkness phase that lasted for 24 hours, buffing one camp and then the other. Those buffs were not particularly huge, but they were meaningful. It is a 5% attack boost and a 50% burning speed boost. And it is that burning speed boost that is completely insane. I would make the argument that in some ways, the randomness of who has the burning speed when a critical event is rolling around is honestly a little bit unfair. However, that's how the event works. Every 24 hours, you get a swap for who gets this buff. You can also see here that there is a score up on the board. This point total is the number of structures that have been destroyed by the opposing camps. You can go in and actually destroy the holy sites belonging to the opposing camp, and that gives your side points. The side that has destroyed more of those structures will ultimately be the ultimate victor in Light and Darkness KvK, which will grant you a good set of rewards. Here is an example of exactly what that looks like when the structure has been assaulted and is being destroyed, and then when the structure is in fact permanently destroyed. In both instances, the alliance that previously owned this structure is no longer getting the buffs provided by the structure. All in all, I found this format of Kingdom versus Kingdom to be really a mixed bag. I like that, unlike Season 1 and 2 of KvK, everybody gets to enjoy a lot of the zones for a long period of time. I dislike, however, the fact that it feels like whichever side is winning the 5 stages of the LvD events leading up to the battle in Kingsland is really tipping the scales in their favor. They're getting even more honor, which gives them even more technology. There's a huge moral victory, which really is a big deal for keeping your kingdom motivated and feeling like they can win the fight. I do, however, like that you get a lot of time to fight at the altars and ancient ruins. They did indicate that the frequency of those happening is going to be decreased, so there'll be less of those taking place. At the time that I did Light and Darkness KvK, I think the Altar of Darkness was once every 2.5 or 3 days, whereas the ruins were like every 15 hours. And man, that is just exhausting. It was a lot of army expansions, not gonna lie. I'm glad that they are making it less frequent, but more important that you make your way to each one of those. The other thing that I really don't like about this format of Kingdom versus Kingdom is that it really ends fast when Kingsland opens. Our KvK ended in literally less than 8 hours, and it was really at that point decided, which is astonishing. In the old format of Kingdom versus Kingdom, you would battle for literally days. I mean, if you watch the playlist for my KvK in Season 3, we battled for literally 6 days in a contested zone. 6 days of nonstop fighting. It was insane and tremendously fun. For KvK to end in 8 hours is a little bit of a letdown, and there's just so much hype, and then it's almost instantly won. And I don't particularly enjoy that. I think that a extended fight would be better. And I honestly lost like 25 million power in 8 hours. It was heart-wrenching, right? Whereas in the previous season of KvK, I lost like 30 million power over 6 days, and that felt better to me, you know? So there's things that I like about Light and Darkness. There's things that I don't like. But hopefully this guide gives you some really great preparation. We may see that this is different going into our Season 5 of KvK, but I would hope that this is giving you everything you need so that at least going into this version of Kingdom versus Kingdom, you feel empowered to do well. If you do feel that way, throw a like on the video and consider subscribing to the channel for daily Rise of Kingdoms videos. I'll probably post this PDF somewhere so you can get a look at it if you wanted to. And for whoever created it, again, thank you for doing that. If you can prove that it was you, I'm happy to attribute it to you in the description of this video. And if you're looking for more KvK action, particularly if you want to see my account and Kingdom going through this format of KvK, I'll put a playlist up in the top where you can watch lots of videos illustrating each of the stages, each of the phases, and exactly how they work in tremendous detail. Leave a comment down below with your thoughts on this format of Kingdom versus Kingdom, and until next time, you have fun smashing the Kingdom, and good luck in Season 5.